President Ramaphosa is back at the state capture inquiry today. It's day 2 for him. Yesterday, he said the end of the commission's work is the beginning of the long and hard road. He also said despite the damage done by the state capture and what we've seen over the years, he says despite all of that, the country is still moving forward. Let's discuss the first day's testimony with a legal expert. It's always such a pleasure. I normally speak to him on the telephone or via Zoom. Hello to you, Benedict Phiri. It's good to have you with us in person as well. And if we just take a look at the coverage we've had from Govan Whittles, Benedict, we take a look at what some of the newspapers are saying as well. I mean, just if we look at this headline from the Star newspaper, Ramaphosa says he was unaware of the scale of corruption. Now, that's the analysis part of this state capture inquiry. Judge Zondo has to put this report together, and then something has to happen with it. What does that look like when eventually we end the state capture inquiry?
Sure. I think, Gareth, the President's testimony yesterday quite startling insofar as what he knew and what he didn't knew, and in some instances convenient. But I think when it comes to Judge Zondo, I think he's definitely going to have to recommend some action around some of the key players for the NPA and others to take action. And there's certainly, if you look at President Ramaphosa's testimony yesterday, there definitely will be some recommendations relating to governance from a legal perspective at these state institutions and state bodies and constitutional institutions, because it's very clear that cadre deployment is eroding the level of governance at these institutions, even from a legal perspective.
And on the cadre deployment, I didn't hear all of it yesterday. The bits and pieces I was picking up on eNCA and on radio yesterday as well. On the cadre deployment, there was a comment about minutes of meetings that simply weren't captured at one stage as well. I mean, it does make you wonder. Tumi and I were talking about this. An organisation this size, the ANC, the president of the ANC, then also the president of the state, coming out with comments that minutes of meetings, regardless what level you're at, weren't available. He wasn't aware of them. That worries. That worries someone like you, doesn't it?
It is worrying, and it beggars belief. When you think of the people that, as the evidence leader put it, are actually instructed to go into those institutions, right? And now you don't have a record of the actual instruction and the reasons why that record came about and why this person may have been the best person for the job. And more worryingly is that these people, once they're in there, are actually beholden to the ANC. So they can't exercise their impartiality, their independence. And then there were questions around even judges, which is even more concerning considering what we're hearing from President Zuma in his current court cases, etc. So really, really concerning, and beggars belief that there isn't even a record, not even a note, not necessarily a formal minute, but there should be someone keeping some kind of note somewhere that they can share with the Commission.
And maybe on his iPad.
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
on the President's iPad. It would have not been the worst idea in the world. Benedict, can we just talk legally for a second here? As far as I understand, a Commission of Inquiry, once we get to the end of all of this, is going to put together a report. That report and findings is going to make recommendations. There is no teeth to the state capture inquiry, really. Recommendations can be put forward, and the very man giving testimony now, the first citizen, President Ramaphosa, if I understood correctly, he is going to be the one to be signing off on this, is my understanding. So where does this leave the Commission, having to get testimony from the very man who may have to sign off on this, and also the first citizen of the country? It's an awkward position.
It is an awkward position. It was established by President Zuma initially, and now obviously President Cyril Ramaphosa is there. And we trust, I hope, that President Cyril will actually take on board those recommendations and implement the ones that are at least at a state that should be implementable and quite quickly. We accept some of the recommendations will be coming out around who should be put into or prosecuted, wrongdoers, some strengthening of institutions, and we expect that he actually put those recommendations in place.
Legally, if we talk about once this commission wraps up, yes, the report goes forward, recommendations are made. We've seen very vocal opposition parties. I think there was the DA yesterday out with placards talking about whistleblowers. That's not where I'm going with this, Benedict. What I want to know is if these findings come out and there is opposition to the findings, what is the legal framework look like in that? Do we all run straight to the Constitutional Court, the apex court of the country? Does it go to Parliament? Where does this live in South Africa's legal framework?
We've heard some rumours, for instance, from the former president saying this thing was never properly constituted in the first place, and any recommendations that flow from there will be null and void and is ripe for a review. So disgruntled parties will certainly look at the ability to take the recommendations and the findings and even the constitution of the commission on review with the High Court at first instance, and certainly that will make its way up to the Constitutional Court eventually if it has any prospects of success and any live debate at that context. But that is something that has been threatened, and we're expecting it as you know, once these recommendations and reports come out.
Last 20 seconds. So when we hear that once the report is done, that's the beginning of the long, hard road. This could be a very long road before we get any finality to anything we're hearing now. What's your expectation timeline-wise, do you think?
I agree with you there, and I don't have a real expectation time-wise. We do know that court processes take a long time in this country. Legislative processes take a long time in this country. So I think we'll be subject to what we've come to expect as South Africans around how long things take in this country to implement.
Yeah, perhaps we need to all lower our expectations as far as timelines are concerned. Benedict, what a pleasure to have you in the studio for a change. Legal expert Benedict Phiri joining us here on eNCA. Second day of the President's testimony today, speaking as the state president of the country. That's going to be live here on eNCA once it gets underway a little bit later this morning. Well, let's stay with